2 seconds.
Come on.
Oh, sorry, 2 minutes.
I think we got started yet. Well, first of all, welcome and to our waterfront campus of George Brown College here on Toronto's soon-to-be beautiful lakefront. For visitors from overseas, we should tell you that we take things very deliberately in Toronto. The first Royal Commission on what to do about Toronto's waterfront was 1913, and we've been proceeding quickly ever since to get them done. So we're delighted to be here with our colleagues at Chorus next door and to open in just over 2 months' time this beautiful building, which Lori has been dreaming about and thinking about and helping create for the last 10 years. I was mentioning to a couple of your folks before we came in. I recall reading a major piece written by John Chambers, whose name you probably will recognize, back in about 2002. And in it he said that one of the presenting problems or issues or challenges of the next period of time would be whether educational institutions will keep pace with the exponential rate of social and technological change. In fact, he went on to assert, you go back and read it, that education was a cottage industry which would ultimately be gobbled up by the private sector because it wouldn't be able to adapt quickly enough to the changing world circumstances and with the pace of technology particularly. Well, we hope, we're not here to prove them wrong, but we hope we have at least delayed that sort of onset of the paralysis which you saw in the inability of particularly big public sector institutions to adapt quickly enough and be agile enough and flexible enough to change and to anticipate the oncoming changes in education, pedagogy, the needs of students, the needs of society, and so on. All this to say that we're going through a period of transformational change. You folks know this better than we do, and it's our challenge to really train the next generation of workers for a rapidly changing workplace. In Ontario alone, we talked about the challenge being over the next, say, 20 years, being the issue of people without jobs and jobs without people. And we figure even in Ontario, which has the highest educational, post-secondary educational attainment level in the OECD at 62%, we want to drive it to 70% participation rate. We believe that we're up to this challenge, and we believe that it's in buildings like this, with the leadership we've got, of people like Lori and other folks on the team, that we'll be able to meet that challenge. So hopefully you will enjoy the tour. When you're back and you talk to Mr. Chambers, say hello to him, say we are reading his stuff, and we're keeping abreast of it. So welcome, and I think, Steve, is it over to Lori? That's the next. Lori.
Welcome. For the women, this is great if you have a bad hair day. Welcome, and what I want to do before we get into what these spaces are specifically for is to talk to you a little bit about healthcare. Why healthcare? Because healthcare was the driver for this building. And although a lot of you are from different countries, and of course those from Canada, healthcare is probably one of the biggest concerns in the world in terms of how we're going to keep up providing the care we need. In Canada, we have a system that is supposed to be publicly funded, but it has many challenges, and including wait times, including being able to see the right person at the right time, not necessarily the physician, the problem of about information sharing, making sure that one practitioner knows who I am when I see another physician or another kind of therapist, and why is it that I have to repeat my stories, not enough healthcare professionals, and not being trained in the right way. These are challenges all nations face in terms of healthcare, making it sustainable, affordable, and in Ontario we talk about having the right person at the right time. So all of that passion and issues around healthcare drove a document that in 2002 was co-authored, and there was a commission by Health Canada that looked at the issues of healthcare. And it noted a number of issues. The fact that information was not being shared well, There were safety issues because if you don't share the right information at the right time, chances are you're going to be given the wrong medication, wrong issues, and many people have noted even the wrong surgical procedure. The other issue is, if we're supposed to be working in teams, why are these professionals not trained in teams? Why is it you have a separate medical school over here, a separate nursing school over here, a physiotherapy, etc., and maybe they come together when they're in the field, but they're not trained or taught how to work together. It's more than just being friends on a team. You can have good team-based skills, but you're not going to have what we ultimately need is better collaborative care, where everybody is truly having input into what happens to you. And you could all, I am sure, relate to a story, personally, family member, whatever, who you could tell me that the right hand, the doctor didn't know what the nurse didn't know what this person did, or my family member left the hospital and they didn't know what to do with them when they got them home. So these were some of the issues that were in that commission report. Roy Romano, who was a premier in one of our provinces, Saskatchewan, led that. And in it, he also said something very interesting. He said that if we're going to change all of this thinking, then we need to think about how we educate our students in a different way. Because if they enter the system the same way, and I'm sure you see this in technology, if we train them this way and then we expect this to happen, it doesn't happen. We don't have the time, energy, or effort to do the training. Well, the same thing in healthcare. And there began the journey from 2002 about looking at educating our students differently, less siloed, looking at how technology would support that learning, looking at how our spaces would support that learning. So at the end of the day, bottom line is we would ensure that our healthcare students and graduates were better prepared for a world that has more emphasis on team-based care, more knowledge of the entire system, better understanding about health as well as the healthcare system, and better understanding how to use technology to support that information sharing. That is why this building. So it's a long story, but it's important to understand the context. The journey began, we worked with the ministry and government and got the funding 4 years ago to support this new building. So the key things, now that you understand the why, is what you're going to see. In order to support the education model that we just shared, of course, one of the key differences has been that faculty now have had to learn how to collaborate, work with colleagues. So nursing, working with dental hygiene, with our fitness group, faculty didn't even know each other, and looking at what the similarities are. For example, they all teach about health and wellness and assessments, but they all talked as if they were the only game in town. Every health professional does an assessment, but what are the similarities? What are the differences? How to use technology. So what you will see here are spaces that allow for more integration. Our classrooms are more flexible. We are using technology in all of our classrooms and in the public areas to support integrated learning, interclass learning, and even learning beyond the boundaries of this space, because there are professionals we don't educate here. Doctors, physiotherapists, they're all at the university. We don't educate them. We do educate nurses, so we have that in common, but the other partners of the healthcare system aren't educated here. But in real life, they are as much a part of that healthcare team as the ones we educate. So we need to be able to do more teleconferencing and capability to connect with them. You will see more public spaces, because a lot of this, every inch of this space is a learning environment. We have plugs everywhere. We have opportunities for students to get on their computers and start working and doing those group work projects that are started in our classrooms, that are not lecture. I hate that word. Language, actually, think about it, really limits your thinking. So you won't see the word lecture theater, because that implies one person at the front and everybody listening. This type of learning has to be collaborative. It has to be interactive. It has to have the opportunity where students can truly taste, feel, and smell what we mean by integration, by collaboration. You will also see a lot of space allotted to applied learning. And we actually do real-time clinics and services that support the community but are supervised by our faculty so students have that exposure. You will also, again, won't see names that it used to say Nursing Resource Center, Dental Hygiene, Denturism. You will not see that. You'll see more integrated spaces where the students have the opportunity to learn. We also have a whole 4th floor devoted to simulation. Simulation is becoming a very large component of healthcare education. I mean, it came from the, the Air Force airplanes, where pilots, thankfully, learned how to crash, not in real time. You don't want that. Well, you don't want you to be the first patient to have a needle taken into, not fun. So you want a lot of opportunity for students to experience in a safe environment what it's like to provide care. We've also been committed, though, because of what I said earlier about healthcare taking place larger than just acute. In fact, we are trying to move away, not take away from, but in addition to training our students how to learn about healthcare in the community and at home. And you'll see a simulation in our simulation space, an apartment that we're calling Health, and then little E, love it, for you guys in IT, Home, to support that healthcare does take place in people's homes and that technology can keep people longer in their homes by connecting to real-time clinicians. And that's what's happening in other parts of the world. You've got diabetics that are monitored, they're not even in the room. So these are the kinds of things that you will see in this space. A lot of attention to flexibility, public space, applied learning, and a lot of open areas for students just to informally get together. Any questions on that before we move?
What's the risk of the rest of the college wanting to move here now?
I've gotten a lot of money out of this because I'm taking orders. No. Well, actually, it's very interesting. That was a concern expressed right at the beginning. You know, that others had felt that, why are we getting all this? Well, Eugene will tell you that other parts of the college have been renovated. Some of the people are in fairly new buildings. Okay, so 9-10 years isn't new. But what we have done throughout the process, we've included there was about 140 people on this planning, both the academic and corporate, which I can talk about in terms of a design, how to be successful, to ensure you have it accurately. What we have done, whether it's technology, digital signage, standardization, learning environments, is we actually have 2 classrooms, one at one site and one at the other site, where we've tested out different space, different furniture, different types of screens to play around, that they will leave it there for them to learn, so that in fact they will benefit in many ways from the standards and the learning we have done here. We put in some processes that now will become standard for the college. I mean, I can't tell them you're going to be by a lake. That we can't do. But some of the key learnings about the space design, about how we're working, it's starting to already filter in the other campuses. Any other questions?
Okay, Lori, that's great, thanks. Okay, so just a couple of words here before we got on our tour. Terry Como, who is, you heard from Lori, you heard from Eugene first about the 50,000-foot view of this whole thing. You've heard from Lori the 30,000-foot view about why we're doing this. Terry Como is going to help me in this tour. She's going to tell you how we're doing it, because when it goes from 50,000 to 30,000 feet, from our perspective as the constructor of this job, in conjunction with Terry as our client, it's all about the 10,000-foot view. So you're going to see now the 10,000-foot view. You're going to see the AV that Lori talked about. You're going to see the network that our Michael Wolf has in place right now to talk about the integration. You're going to hear from Terry about the architectural detail that's been put in place. So with that, I'm going to introduce Terry Como. Luz Oblesny, who's responsible for the M&E, is here as well to help us on any questions or answers. So now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of how we're actually doing this, how we're going to make this thing all be ready for July and be ready to accept students on September 1st. So a lot of work to be done, but we'll be there. Okay, so Terry?
Great, okay. If you want to see some space, you're all Cisco. You've got a great partner here, strategic partner in Ellis Dawn, our construction partner for the project. We are a Cisco house, as you know. Our main gear is all Cisco, all of our network gear. You'll notice our wonderful park area here. We're going to be served by Cisco Wireless reaching out for group work and group accommodation. So we have a great Cisco story to tell here, in addition to the great building architecture that we're going to show you. So our thought for the tour today is we're going to start up on the 7th floor, up on the patio overlooking the lake. We'll give you a little bit of context. We will bring you to a typical 120-seat lecture auditorium, and Lori will talk a little bit about the pedagogy and the application of the technology to the class environment. We're going to show you our wonderful multi-use auditorium spaces, and we're also going to take you outside for a little tour around as well. We're looking at approximately 500,000 square feet overall, 330,000 square feet of occupiable space over 7 occupied floors, plus a full concourse level below us, connecting to a future phase 3, or phase 2 rather, block 3 across the driveway. And then we have 3 parking levels below going down to bedrock in very difficult soil conditions. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to take the elevator, which is immediately over there. We're going to port you up to level 7, where you're going to have an amazing million-dollar view looking out over the lake and the city. And we'll start telling you about part 2 of our story.
So hang on, before you leave, can anybody tell us here what you guys really want to see? Like you've all come a long way. So if you guys can just yell out 3 or 4 things that you really want to see here, we'll try and make sure that the tour covers those. I know earlier someone wanted to know how the network was built, right? So we'll capture it off by going to a LAN room. But what else does the group want to see from a specific point of view, so we make sure that we don't waste your time here?
Simulation suites, Lori?
Yeah.
Simulation. 120-seat classroom, demarcation room.
Okay, anything else?
Auditorium. Barb? Okay, all right, let's go.
Okay, so we'll break this up in 3 groups or 4. So first group, the elevator is waiting for us.
Me parece que es para allá. Por la ciudad de fondo.
Yeah, those are our little local flora and fauna, the weeds. So, team, just for introduction here, you are looking out over the beautiful Lake Ontario, the Toronto Islands here, which are recreation islands for the city of Toronto. I don't know if anyone's been over there yet. This is the Western Gap, Eastern Gap here. This is a very active sailing community, and I understand many of you are from the Netherlands, another great seafaring nation. But we have the Port of Toronto here, which is scheduled for redevelopment shortly. And we are part of a much bigger development which is occurring along the entire waterfront. And you can see it if you look over right here. This is if any of you have visited Harbourfront yet, you'll recognize the public promenade. We actually had the great cities of Rotterdam and Amsterdam in mind when we did a lot of this project work. And this promenade will be continuing along the full east end over and connecting back into the Portlands over here. So we have probably one of the most valuable lands. We're up on level 7 right now, so we're about 30 meters.
Can you talk to me about this guidance?
Oh, sure. This is a green roof trough system, and literally 60% of our roof over the span of our various roof levels is actually planted. This is now a requirement of the City of Toronto, in addition to a LEED requirement. I'm sure you're all familiar with LEED, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. This is a LEED Gold building. I'm a LEED accredited professional. I'm essentially managing and representing the owner in the development process. So our team began 3 years ago. We are obligated to deliver LEED Gold, and the development of a green roof system is part of that. So what we're looking at here are indigenous local species, a series of essentially grasses. Wild grasses will be grown here. We will have exterior outdoor furniture. This is open to the public during the day. We are really looking for, actually we had our first event here last Thursday evening, and it was quite glorious. You can imagine being here with all of the constructors who helped to make this happen, and drinking wine, and thinking 2 years ago we had a big hole in the ground, and it was quite wonderful. So this area over here is all the Dean's Wing. These are the Dean's offices here, the main staff lounge. Planning principles for the building were very democratic. So I think we have about 3 private offices in the entire building. Most are, including the Dean, who introduced you, Dean Lori. She is in an open office environment. Everyone is in an open office environment. We have many glorious meeting rooms and 12 conference rooms. And we are employing some Cisco technology for that. The principle around which we've designed the building, as Lori has indicated, is basically every square inch is for learning. We plug and play everywhere. We're set up for group work and group accommodation. Group work areas here, and wireless extending out into the park and into the promenade, and perhaps even into the lake if our wireless will extend that far. You're standing on Ipe patio flooring here, which is ironwood. It's a reforested sustainable species, part of our LEED program. And this area is completely open to the public for private work, group work, entertaining, whatever. Any questions, comments? Questions? Come on, good question. The LEED Gold. Well, we're very pleased to say that we have a number of highly sustainable features in the building, such as stormwater management. We're looking at the recycling of materials used in construction. We're looking at the green roof situation here. We were obligated to meet approximately 55 out of the 69 LEED points with the old LEED system. We were grandfathered in, as you know. The project is about 3 years old. Just trying to think of yes. Building automation systems were part of it, as was fundamental commissioning and best practices commissioning. Energy and atmosphere points, so we are looking at basically being 50 to 60% more energy efficient than the average ASHRAE ranked building of similar use and application. Materials, no VOCs, no VOC in the paints, no off-gassing, control of methane, control of carbon. We are on a very, very sophisticated building automation system, and we're going to tell you more about that as we go through the building. But we're very, very proud, actually. I think we're probably one of the top 2 or 3 in North America right now, and I'll explain to you some of the attributes of that program as we go through.
You're on the water here, so you took advantage of the deep water cooling systems that some of the buildings are going through. here too?
No, and there's a reason for that. Initially, we had to sign on for a district energy program, which was launched by the master developer Waterfront Toronto. That program was halted partway through construction, so we flipped very quickly to provide an energy plant for our building with high efficient traditional systems. So high efficiency systems, but traditional systems. In order to gain further lead points, though, as you know, moving forward, your building, as you go toward net zero carbon, you actually have to now start producing energy as part of your building envelope. And we hope that we'll be able to undertake some of that in our next phase, including possibly geothermal, wind, solar power. This is a very unique location here because of the exposure on all sides and the high wind acceleration here. Although it's still not fully, it's not a functional business model to be able to run completely off grid at this location because of our immense power needs. We have some bullfrog power. It's renewable choice, I think, is the one we went with.
So Terry, no solar here yet?
No solar. Although we will be doing, actually, one of our key concepts has been the idea of the building as a living laboratory for experimentation. And we're in the throes of installing a very sophisticated building sensory system, sensory and probe system that will then be connected by IP addressable equipment into our data system and then up into Microsoft Cloud for an experimental program for the distribution of data. We'll have a full weather station and probes up on our 8th floor here, so we'll be able to gauge wind temperature, wind speed, wind direction. We're looking at precipitation, we're looking at humidity, and all of that will then be translated into environmental factors for analysis against sensors that are placed both on the exterior and the interior of the building envelope. We have 7 different kinds of curtain wall in this building, and so we're going to be using the experimental process to determine which were the most responsive building curtain wall or traditional wall assemblies, and our construction center of excellence in technology, our technology program essentially for construction management, will be assisting us in the data collection and evaluation, and we're very proud of that. I think we'll be one of the first full R&D platforms in North America that will be reporting in completely via Ethernet, which is going to be pretty cool.
So the point of that is to sensor and then adjust the temperature according to...
Yes, partly, but it's also to determine with a given building envelope under different kinds of conditions, how does it respond? What are the most effective building assemblies for the various conditions that we find here? And then what happens when you start adjusting the parameters? What happens if you have extremely high humidity in some areas of the building? We have live labs. What happens if you have extremes in temperature? What does that mean? How do the various envelopes respond? And then how does that impact our energy bill over time? So we're also looking at energy utilization, heading toward that net zero future. And what's our makeup? Steve, shall we keep going? Concourse level 5 and 7. And the purpose of this is basically, this is your plug and play area as a student. You come in, you data up, you wire up, you power up, you work in groups, you look at films, you have impromptu seminars. It's basically a non-bookable space that's utilized for learning. So essentially, giant steps toward the learning process. And the learning landscape backs onto one of only 2 lecture halls that we have in the entire space. And I think Lori has talked about the idea that we're not supporting in a big way the traditional lecture type of program. You can still do lectures in this building. You can teach via the old style lecture route where you have all of the students lined up in rows in front of you. But we think it can be done a little more progressively and a little more creatively. And I'm going to show you that now. So come on down and take a look at the learning landscape and the learning lecture theater.
The entrance, the main entrance is how you came in, and then we have an entrance, then you go below. We will have accessible, so you have to have an elevator for those from outside of the province. Accessibility is a huge issue for us, so we have to ensure all our spaces meet the needs from visual, from physical impairment, etc. So a lot of the signs and that kind of thing are important. What we want to continue the opportunities for students to be able to work informally. So along these windows right here, what you're seeing are tables with lots of opportunity for students to work together informally. They're not bookable. Students can, because there'll be more group work required, they can just come to these tables. In these spaces, you'll see the technology on the floor are bookable spaces for our students. If they have assignments, they need to use the computer. They can here, but they want quieter space relatively. For those of you who recall the libraries of universities from years ago where you had to go shh, shh, forget it. You walk in here and you go, this is a library. You'd be shocked. Yak, yak, yak. It's loud, it's interactive. But for those who need more quiet, bookable spaces, we have that opportunity. On the lower level, we have a computer room because we do teach basic computer skills. We have testing. We do a lot of our teaching on Blackboard. Use that software. So there is, the teachers are taught the Blackboard. Students learn about Blackboard. So that's all done below. So it's sort of, this is a louder zone. Downstairs is a quieter zone, and that's how they've been designed. We really try to integrate spaces in our student services, what you'll see below, or if you don't. A lot of the thinking was taking that integration, that interprofessional, that interactivity, and going beyond just the academic delivery, but looking at how we can best support the services as well. And the planning has been, part of the interactivity. It's been great because the library wasn't just planned by the people who run the library, but also student services was part of it. Our online education group was on it. So it was really quite exciting to ensure that we have a space that is really zoned and makes more sense for students.
Okay. You want to take this in the stairs?
Sure.
We're on. We do have some. Yeah. Oh, we don't, but we partner with Smart. Yeah.
So this is the second of the learning landscape. Can we go in? Can we go in?
No, it's not safe.
Not safe. Okay.
Yeah, we do. We just partner with Smart.
Smart's the name of the company?
Yeah.
Aren't they clever?
Lecture theaters, 3 actually, that we do have. And Laura, you may want to comment on this in more detail, but even the way the seats work, the group environments are all set up to facilitate interprofessional learning, people turning around, working in groups, going back to the lecture format. Each step is a double step to take into account. Lori, you might want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, that was the important thing, is the typical tiered classrooms are not conducive to turning around, or those seats that you almost get killed when you try to turn around and bounces back. Honestly, the design, I hope nobody here designed it. But anyways, in this, I said, is there a way that we can have a tiered, because they were insisting on some tiered. So we allowed 2, and then we'll see the auditorium, which can be used in 2 ways. So we allowed that, but I said, is there a way we can do it so that you can have the 2 rows on each platform, so that each row, every other row is soft, so that when they say go back and discuss it in the group, you're not going like this, bouncing back, and you're not looking behind to the person who's looking down to you. So each row platform has 2 rows. So it would even allow for that interactivity to take place. In the 120s, one could argue how much group work can you do. You know, surprisingly, you can do a lot, and this is part of the education and transformation that we've had to do with some of the faculty, and it will continue to do so. But so we have two of these, and these ones do make sense for some of the content that we teach, the pathology, the anatomy, you know, and they are big classes, so they will be well used in that environment, but it allows for that combination.
Sorry, Laurie. I can't quite picture it, but each platform having 2 rows.
Each one, you have 2 rows. You know, normally in a tier you have a row, and you go up a step, you have a row, and you go up a step. So each one you have 1 row, but instead of this row of seats that you're in the middle, you know, you turn around and it's attached, it's a soft seat, so you just turn the seat around, and there's the person behind you. So the group in front can partner with the group behind on the same level, in a red comfortable chair, and it's not going to keep turning and twisting on you as you try to work with them.
And there'll be one desk surface?
Yeah.
Or elbow desk?
What are they,
Full continuous desk surface.
And then Terry, you just talk about the AV to be
Sure. The classrooms themselves are all set up as learning lab environments. And this was a really strong mandate the faculty had, and Lori led this program, to go to a higher level of technology. We're talking about young students, as you know, who do most of their learning outside of the classroom, in excess of 70% from the research. They're used to gaming, they're used to a lot of activity on their computers. We have multimedia screens. Here we have 2 screens. We have the ability in the future to do online learning. If Lori develops other faculties in other cities that need to be connected. So we're looking at that. We're looking at programs via camera and then IP download right into our data system. Sorry about the construction noise. So we're looking at a dedicated platform for live online learning. I think we want to move on to our next location.
You know, the problem is this is a stupid observation, so hopefully they'll bring the blocks down so you can see. Paper. Paper. No, not here. There's supposed to be something outside so that they don't see it. That was supposed to be so that we can report it. Yeah, so you're in the simulation center, and there's sort of 3 parts to the simulation center. This is, as I was saying, where students can practice in safe environments, different scenarios, skills, team-based care, etc., as well as specialized areas. So what you're in is you are in a group room, debrief room, observation room. It's a number of things, and every room can play different roles, and that's the beauty of the space. So we can, there is blinds, right here? Yep. Yeah, so that this can be cut off and just used as a classroom. You can see the whiteboard, or it becomes the observation room. What's in here, we have 4 of these high fidelity, this is actually the operating room. We teach operating room skill set to nurses. We are one of the few in Ontario, so they are sent from the hospitals to learn operating room procedures, skills, etc. It's a very intensive program. So you need a simulated environment to do that. Our goal is to incorporate other players in the operating room theater, and so they could be in there. You would have a group in here watching the scenarios, etc. Our hope is over time that we will also be doing more commercialization and research opportunities so we can test new products, so you could have the researchers in here separate from the room. And for that reason, all the control rooms. These are high-tech mannequins, some of them. They talk, they walk, well, they don't walk, but I'd love to get them to walk. So if anybody wants to donate one of those, I'd be happy. But if you ever do a needle on these high-tech, I mean, it feels like someone's skin. They can go into respiratory failure, heart failure, the machine goes off, and etc. So we can replicate that, but we wanted to have if we have a technologist operating the mannequin and the mannequin can talk, then they're separate. So in a true research fashion, we separated them because we used to have them all in one room, and it didn't allow for that kind of clean research capability, if you like. So as I said, so we've got a number of these high fidelity rooms, and then we have low fidelity, which we'll show you in a minute, and the healthy home, which is really, if you're going to cut up, that's really the three main areas, but it's a significant space.
We also, on this floor, have the iPortal. You might want to talk a little bit about the iPortal and the video conferencing.
Yeah, so we have video conferencing capability in a few areas. The auditorium will be one. What the iPortal stands for, it's my research colleague. Unfortunately, I can't remember. You know, you have these acronyms that you're supposed to remember. I don't remember it. But I think interprofessional, IP was the IP, the ORTAL, who remembers? But the important thing is that it is a research, it's a space, it's at the northeast corner of the space, sort of in front of here. You have not much to see right now, but the excitement is that the capability of us to do applied research, to bring companies, partners into the site to do the research. We will be providing space for them to be able to do that. We have teleconferencing capability to do work with partners that aren't physically on site. And so we're hoping that this commercialization aspect that I was talking about, the applied research, colleges don't do hardcore scientific research. We do more applied research, will really be enhanced by the physical presence of the research team in the northeast corner. And we're going. I wasn't able to. Okay, so if it looks like a kitchen to you, it is. It's actually 3 plus 1. This is what we're calling the healthy home that I was referring to. And it is divided into 2 zones quickly. This is obviously a kitchen, but it's a home kitchen. And it's intended to do and learn culinary skills supporting our healthy home. It was designed in collaboration with our School of Hospitality, so this was an integrated process. And looking at how technology could better support the learning, there are a number of programs that are taught, this outside in the community, and my hope is that we'll connect with them to better support our patients and clients and families in their own homes. This isn't about, for those who are glued to the TV, the cooking channel or the food channel. We do that at our hospitality thing. This is really about supporting, teaching, and learning about home preparation, good nutrition, and bringing, my hope is ultimately that we'll be bringing in the family caregivers to learn how to do this. So this is, you'll see the technology supports the learning. The actual demo is over here. The demo is over here, and then this can be closed off so that they can just work in here, and this becomes the kitchen to the apartment. And as I said, we didn't, we had old kitchens. Having hospitality working with technology to support how do you position the stuff, what kind of technology you need to use to enhance the learning was really a terrific opportunity, because this guy had built kitchens for professional cooking schools. So that was really helpful. And then around the corner is our apartment. The rest of the apartment, with a lovely steel girder in the middle. Yeah. So we're renting this out for a fee, for a night. I'll just think up the cost. The only problem is the toilet doesn't work, so you'll have to use somewhere else. But this gives people a chance to actually transfer work with, and there's a lot of technology here that we can then actually beam to others to learn about how you transfer, take care of patients in their own home.
All right, we're going to do.
Okay, Cisco Comms Plus. So,
I've been here a while.
business, but I think it's important that these people learn about how we're bringing in IT early, and the construction coming together with.
Talk about that.
You'll do that?
Michael on that part of the tour?
Yes.
This part,
You and
so
Michael?
and I can do
Perfect.
that.
Okay.
That's excellent.
I think it's important for these folks to to understand.
absolutely.
We're hanging TVs right now. I know the phones, but just it's a bigger view, right? The land closet. So if you wouldn't mind just capturing that, Terry and
No,
Luzo.
for sure. I
Okay.
think it's a
Thanks.
core aspect of our program.
Hang on. We need Michael.
Sorry, guys. Cheers over. I thought we were all stacked. We're all stacked.
What other goals?
I'm not sure where we should go.
Where's the closet?
Our students are being taught by the nurse how to take temperature, make a meal at home. Why are we bringing in the hospital?
Cooling system is soon debut. Oh.
Cooling system.
Nice and cool here, right?
Nice. This is really good. Can we stay here for a while?
Oh, yeah.
I can stay here for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my guys love
This is
it.
it.
No, I'm
Okay, guys, another minute.
Right there, there?
Freshman.
Okay, when you head out that way, follow Dustin there and the
Okay,
right
let's
hand.
go, guys.
yeah, it's very
It's a nice room.
yeah.
So these are just touches, right?
So tell me, last week, was this room packed? People?
Oh, well, they tried. They tried, but I'm the only guy with the key.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I was there.
Okay, guys, wrapped up. Come on, guys.
Building systems. So early on, we did a very detailed review of every building system. We tried to basically force them to make sure that it was riding on this network. So we were really pushing for a converged network so that we would have one path for all the information to follow so that we could basically extract information on the various building systems. So there's a real dedicated push to avoid kind of proprietary separate networks. So with a very detailed review of the horizons, with a very detailed network understanding of how all the specific systems work and what they needed to do to ride on the network, we basically built that network in mind. Sorry. So early on, there's one thing you see from a network perspective. You see, standard configurations for switches and cores and what have you. What's interesting on this project is that this network was basically pre-configured and designed with all of the various building systems already built into the network. So every switch was pre-configured based on what we needed from a port perspective, separate VLANs for all the various building systems, whatever static IP ranges they needed, VLANs, VPNs, what have you. That was all built in as part of the network design build. So every switch was staged and pre-configured with the specific requirements per floor by building system.
Under laboratory conditions.
Under laboratory
and
conditions.
then delivered to the site.
So the entire network was tested, taken apart, redeployed over here, again reconnected, commissioned and tested, And right now we're actually, and it was because it was pre-built for all the systems, we had a full patching schedule that was built in conjunction with the network being built. So right now you can see most of the patch panels are actually patched right now, and it's just a question of patching and building systems are coming online. What's interesting about this is because when you create a building like this and you say, okay, you have to rely on our network, then you're forced to have the network up. So really our network's been running for some time now, and all the other various building systems that are commissioning them, and they've commissioned a part of the building automation system, they need that active network now to support it. So it just really becomes a reliance upon you having your network, making sure your network's running, making sure you have all their network information, making sure it's patched. So it's a lot of homework now leading up to this point, and really the building can't work anymore unless you have that network commissioned early and you allow enough time for them to get all the other building systems ready and commissioned. So the network build is becoming really increasingly important as part of the overall construction build, and Elliston is recognizing that, and basically, you know, it's just very early discussions on from a network perspective, getting the land rooms ready. There's a complete different schedule on when the land rooms are ready, and integrating into the overall construction schedule becomes a big part of this process now.
I would just say for Michael, you're and Terry's right. So early on at Cisco's office, we had a presentation between Paul Hickey and a guy from Marshall Monahan and a guy from DTZ, and the discussion was, you know, how do we get specs to change right now? So maybe Terry, you can talk about how you enabled us to meet the subs early on and interview them and go through that process and make sure that we got IP-enabled solutions to make Michael's life easier in building this network out.
Absolutely. The important thing to take away, one important thing to take away from this visit is that integrated systems in building construction don't just happen. It's brand new technology, and we haven't yet fully integrated that process into the construction building process. And I think what Stephen and Michael are talking about, I think it's very, very important that we start from day one, long before we start construction. We're thinking about our network, and we're thinking about our systems and our technology long before we start construction. And we're also adjusting and creating new building processes to insert the thinking early on in construction activity before the die is cast. Because if you start thinking about your network when most groups do, which is usually about 3 to 6 months before you move in, game is over. What has to happen is that your mechanical, your electrical, your building control systems, your security systems, all from the get-go have to be integrated into this broader realm of thinking. And I think we're approaching the leading edge in terms of what we're doing here, in that we didn't have a company before Elliston and Cisco and Fifth Light came along to help us. There was no market product that you could pick off the shelf that would actually accomplish what you needed to do. So we actually sat down and worked through the design of the software sequences that would facilitate this technology interface directly with our contractor, Elliston, and their integration team, with Cisco, with Fifth Light, our integration software developers. So it's a fundamentally different approach. It's a different way to think about the world in order to get to the high technology program you want to get to. So I think as a network supplier, I think there's an important message there for Cisco Systems in terms of how you develop and promote your gear, in terms of being able to understand how the construction industry has to change to facilitate bringing something like this online. Michael, you may wish to comment on that, or Stephen, you may wish to comment. I think that's basically the message.
The whole purpose of here, right? It was basically a collaboration of coming together between Cisco and Elliston and GBC. You led the charge, and we brought the resources and the people, right? And it was without a team effort. I know it's an overused term. Without that collaboration in construction, this never would have happened.
Well, and then when you look at where we started with Lori's program and the big interprofessional education idea, and then we looked at how we can develop that program and how we can develop not just a series of rooms, but a whole building, a whole philosophy around our spaces and how they work together. And then we evolved the technology platform to deliver Laurie's program of interprofessional education, connected, live learning, learning of the future, and we wrapped it up in that program for her. So it's really looking at the building as a series of big conceptual ideas that then slowly becomes reality, and then the message being you embed the technology at the front end of the process, not at the back end, which is where it sits currently.
I think the answer, you know, something like that, right? You heard earlier, right? We didn't just use traditional specs. We wrote the specs from the start, right? We used those slides.
We had to force subcontractors who are not used to providing open backnet IP addressable systems. We had to encourage them, cajole them, and force them to open up their software to us, which is a big leap for a company. And to their credit, I want to thank the groups that were working in partnership with us. The Honeywells, the Fifth Lights of the world, Simplex Grinnell, who are not used to doing this. And so this was a big leap into the future for all of us. I think it's fair to say. And the first time we've actually been able to achieve this in Canada at this level. Any questions, comments?
Right here, Terry.
To support real-time application, you should use especially adopted Ethernet protocols. Do you use just ordinary switch or some special industrial?
You're talking about the stack switch? They're talking about the network stack switch we're using?
For interacting with automation devices.
Maybe SCADA systems he's talking about as opposed to IP.
Well, the thing about it is that our design was conditional upon trying to push everyone to the converged network, because on the back end, we're actually working with an application system, which we call CMS, which is Central Management Server. And the idea being that we would have some analytics there, so we could take information on the various building systems and start doing intelligence for it. So our drive was really trying to push the various building systems onto this network, so we could therefore have some intelligence to the information. So we were trying to avoid kind of creating a lot of disparate information. And I mean, in some ways you can argue that yes, there's a preferred rate for a specific vendor, but we see the industry, we see the specific building systems guys now moving towards it. They see the direction in which it's going as a result of kind of the direction companies pushing this, and they're basically changing their system specs to work for direct.
We forced them into IP wherever we could. That's the bottom line. To Terry's point, when she said force, it was literally we forced them into IP type systems.
Okay. You have plans, and also what is your maximum delay plan? Or
Sorry, maximum
delay.
Delay.
When you interact with actuators and other automation.
Are you talking about from AV? You're talking about from audio visual, like interaction?
Or
from a sensor? From a sensor?
Sensor.
Like if the CO2 is too high, how long is the loop? Is that the question? How long does it take to get a correction to the system?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that process integrates our facility management team. And we have a whole software sequence around that. So let's say our CO2 levels go too high in one area. We'll have an alarm sequence go off that would be virtually instantaneous. If it's a piece of equipment that's gone down, we will eventually be able to issue a work order automatically on that piece of equipment to the personnel involved to go out and do a repair. So the idea is all of the lighting is automated, all of the sensory systems, temperature, everything is automated to respond essentially on an immediate IP basis.
To your point, there's almost no latency. It's so quick, it's instantaneous. In fact, they get to slow some processes down because it was almost too fast. So the pushing things to a converged network and doing that type of integration, effectively hasn't created any issues or delays on it. You know, for what we're using as the hardware, and with 10 gig our backbone, what we have with fiber, we have a lot of capacity.
Any questions? Any thoughts? I think we have to get you to your buses.
Yeah, Terry, thank you very much.